So what is MVVM and how it helps? M stands for model, and view model. So the entire thing works like this. You have a view which is responsible for the user interface and recording user interactions. And then there is model which captures the state of the program. So basically recorded data, fetch data from the server, and something like that. And in the middle you have a view model that connects them both. So view model records user interaction events from the view and maybe processes them, and then it passes on them to the model. While from the model, it can take the data and put it in the view. So this design helps you to create more robust code that is more easy to maintain and doesn't result in such a direct coupling between different system components. How to create reusable elements for MVVM setup. So in our case, and in most of the cases, the model is shared because it's the same program state for all of the views that you're going to be working with. But we're going to be able to extract a common interface for the views, and views in our case are activities. And then we can extract a common abstract class for all of the view models. So let's take a quick peek at the code. So we have a view interface here. And what's important here is this render method, which is basically going to be responsible for taking the data and putting it in the right place in the activity so the user sees whatever we have given it. So every activity that's going to implement this view interface will have to implement this render method as well. Then we have view model, which has a few important methods in our case, and one of them is bind and unbind. So bind is going to be responsible for marking an activity that it belongs to this specific view model. So basically just going to connect them. And unbind, well, it's just going to do the opposite. And then there are load saved and save state, and we're going to use them to save the state of the activity and load it when activity gets recreated or created anew. And as we know, activities can be basically destroyed and recreated at any time on Android. So you basically have to be prepared for that. Creating model for portfolio and stock quote. So as we talked before, we're going to need a model that represents the state of our entire program and somehow records our portfolio items. So let's take a look at the potential class that could hold the data for our portfolio items. And well, in this case, we called it stock portfolio item. And the only field that it has is symbol where it represents the name of the stock. And at the moment, that's all. We're just going to keep it very simple. And then we have portfolio repository that's going to be responsible for retrieving the list of our current portfolio items. So at the moment it returns just a step list. So we can start working with something. Creating view for portfolio and stock quote. So let's get straight to the code. So we have this stock portfolio list view activity, which is going to be responsible for viewing our stock portfolio. So there's quite a bit of things going on here, so just take them piece by piece. First of all, it implements view interface that we just created earlier, and it has this class called portfolio list data. So this class is used to share data between view and view model. So at the moment it's a very simple class. Well, it has a list of stock portfolio items and a summary text that we're gonna use in our summary example. But basically just used to pass around data between view and view model. Next, we create a view model. We're gonna take a look at it in the next lecture. And we have two fragments. One of them is gonna be a summary, and the other one is the actual list. So we add those fragments with this transaction, as we can see here, and then they have the view model set on them. We're going to take a look briefly in a moment at those fragments. And finally, it loads save data from activity bundle. At the moment, It's unnecessary, but I just wanted to add it so we start thinking about it early. So the next few important bits are on start. Lifecycle method is the place where we bind our view model to this activity. And similar thing happens with onStop. So here we unbind. So next we implement this render method from the view interface, and what it does, it just delegates the rendering to the fragments. So it's really simple, nothing complicated. And that's basically it. So, but because there are like so much things going on here, I really encourage to just check out the code and go through it step by step. So now let's get back to the fragment. So the fragment is gonna contain a recycle view. It has floating action button, which is responsible for, we're gonna use it mimic the stock adding functionality. But what happens here actually is that we inflate the layout. We find the recycle view from the layout. We set it up, the recycle view. We set up the add new button. We find it from the view, and then we add some on click listener. So it just passes the event to the view model. And the actual rendering method, it sets the items from the received data to the adapter, and finally notifies that the dataset has changed, so it needs to be re-rendered. So that's the overview of the view side of this MVVM pattern. Creating view model to glue view and model. So again, let's just go straight to the code. And we are here where we left off, and let's just open view model. Let's close everything else. And view model is responsible for querying data from model. So here it is, the model class, and we're just gonna use it to query data and get portfolio items. And then when it's bound, stock view model, it queries on that moment portfolio items. It stores activity instance in case we're gonna need it later. And as it turns out, we're gonna need it quite often, for example, toast notifications. And we then render this new data that we just got immediately. In the future, we might not do that exactly, but it's just to explain the concept behind the view model. So it just fetches the data from the model and passes it to view. And finally, we have this onNew item add click event, which is received from the user interface, from the view. And when it's clicked, it just shows toast notification just to show, well, that it works. So that's basically it. In the next video, we're gonna take a look at the butter knife framework.